start all this stuff. Let me start Instagram too. Let's see. All right, so we're going to get going. I know I talked about how today is all about talking about building your brand and the building and monetizing a brand. And as I was kind of going over what I wanted to talk about, it all boiled down to one thing. And this one thing is something that very few people, if any, really talk about. Like you tend to see it in some videos, especially with athletes, but you rarely hear it in terms of the business sense. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Let's see who's hopping on real quick. I know a lot of people think in terms like when you're building a brand and everything, they think in terms of tactics and techniques. Like you have a certain, let's say you have a certain, I don't know, like a squeeze page and a product and all that sort of stuff. But today we are going to talk about you. It all comes down to you. That's where it starts. That's pretty much where it ends too. It's all about you in terms of what's going on inside of here. So that's what I want to go over. What's up, everybody? What's up, Maggie, Brad? All right. What up, Rich, Dean? What up, everybody? So even though, like I said, even though I want to talk about building and monetizing an audience, I thought to myself, well, what does it really come down to when you're trying to build and monetize an audience? You're trying to build your brand. What does that really come down to? Because everyone almost knows what to do, especially if you just go to YouTube, you just type in how to build a brand or whatever. You do a little bit of research. Everyone basically knows what to do. They know, like, all right, let me create some content. Let me create an opt-in page. Let me sell a program. Everyone knows things like that. Everyone knows small things they should be doing, but there's one thing that I want to talk about, and that's competitiveness. And that's what we're going to talk about pretty much through this whole thing, right? So let's really get into it. What's up, David? What up, Nick? What up, Alex? Paul? What up, everybody? So let's see what Nick say here. He said, what do you do when someone has taken your brand and destroyed it? My online reputation is garbage because of a few cyber terrorists, because of what a few have done. Well, I mean, if someone takes your brand and tries to destroy it, so here's the thing. They can try to destroy it. And it's like this. Trump is a perfect example, right? I guarantee you, Nick, that your brand, in terms of like all the bad stuff about your brand, it's nothing compared to the bad stuff about Trump. And Trump is the president. So it doesn't matter what you think someone has destroyed. They haven't destroyed it. The only reason they can destroy it is because you haven't put out enough, right? So you haven't put out enough. And this is what we're going to talk about today in terms of it all comes down to you. It's not about what other people are doing, what other people are saying. They simply won't be able to compete with you because they won't be able to spend enough time as you can building your brand. If someone, let's say someone is literally, they're pissed off at something you did. They're like, you know what? I'm going to destroy this person's reputation, right? Let's say they do that. They absolutely, positively cannot spend the amount of time on your brand that you can, because they got to make money. They got to actually do stuff for a living. So they can go online, they can post stuff online. Oh, this person's a scam artist, whatever. They can do whatever they want. But you're sitting there building your brand 24/7. They're trying to ruin your brand for an hour. So it's kind of like it doesn't really matter. It's like what Kobe said, and Kobe, we're going to talk about Kobe a lot today. It's like what Kobe was saying in terms of basketball. He was like, I knew that no matter what, I was going to be better than you, simply because I'm practicing this all day, every day. This is what I do. And you, on the other hand, you have other responsibilities. You have a job or whatever. You got to do all this other stuff. So even if you want to get on my level, you can't. And so that's the same thing in terms of the brand. Like it's like no matter what someone's trying to do to destroy your reputation, they simply can't, just because you're working on it 24/7, right? So what up, everybody? What up, Irene? What up, Dan? So let's get going. So real quick, I mentioned Kobe, and like I said, building and monetizing a brand and doing anything in business, this shouldn't even be titled building and monetizing a brand. It should just be titled competitiveness, right? So that's what this whole thing is about, because it's all about you. And so in terms of competitiveness, to most people, it sounds really bad, right? So if you hear someone who is insanely competitive about what they're doing, it sounds bad when they say things, right? So they say things like, Kobe say something like, I want to win by any means necessary. Now that doesn't sound too bad, but when someone like that says, I want to win by any means necessary, what happens with other people? Other people tend to say things like, well, I mean, you don't really mean by any means necessary. I mean, you don't want to like hurt people or anything like that. That's how other people respond to Kobe's statement. Kobe's like, I said by any means necessary. And that's the difference. That's where you need to be to build and monetize a brand. You have to literally look at someone. Let's say you're in the fitness industry, right? Let's say you're just starting out. You're like, I'm going to build one of the biggest freaking fitness brands ever, right? And you look at one of the top people. I don't know who the top people are. I know there's Jillian Michaels out there, but I don't know if she's a top or not. But let's say you look at one of the top people. You look at Jillian Michaels, right? And you say, all right, Jillian Michaels is one of the top people in the fitness industry. I'm going to absolutely just destroy her. Oh man, like people thought Jillian Michaels was at the top. Oh my goodness, just wait until you see me, right? And so it's one of those things where to other people, it sounds bad when you say stuff out loud about how competitive you are. But to people who are competitive, they naturally get it. And so this is what has to happen if you're going to build your brand, no matter what it is you're doing. A speaking brand, coaching, fitness, real estate, whatever you're doing, you have to get to this point where you're so competitive that you sound insane to most people. That's what it comes down to. You're so competitive, you literally sound insane to people, right? So he said diligence and commitment. Cool. Great. Cool. Yeah. So that's what I mentioned with Kobe. Another thing that Kobe said that I really liked is I don't remember where he said this, but basically he was being interviewed, and Kobe, by the way, in case you don't know who Kobe is, he was like one of the greatest basketball players ever. And so Kobe actually said, or he was picked 13th in the NBA draft, right? So Allen Iverson was number 1. He was great, by the way. But Kobe was picked 13th in the draft. And so Kobe, like after winning a few rings, like after being like one of the greatest, right? He's established as one of the greatest. In an interview, Kobe literally said, he's like, can you believe they picked 12 motherfuckers before me? And he was legitimately pissed off that 12 people were picked before him. I mean, it's like remember when we're kids and we're playing any type of game, basketball or whatever, and you're getting picked one by one, and then you're sitting there, they're like, I want him. And you're sitting there like, huh, okay, maybe he'll pick me next. Oh, I want him. Okay, maybe he'll pick me third. Oh, I want him. And then all of a sudden, like before you're like one of the last people, you're like, mother. And that's what happened with Kobe. Kobe was like, I mean, he wasn't one of the last, but to him, not being first is one of the last. And so when he got picked as a 13th draft pick, he was like, mother, like, okay. And that's the level that you want to be at, to where when you're building your brand, you look at someone who's at the top, you're like, okay. And you have that insane drive. This type of competitiveness is what allows you to do everything to build your brand. Every single thing. When you get frustrated at the technology, you're like, all right, I got to be one of the best. I can care less how frustrating this thing is. I got to keep doing it, right? When you're not getting sales, you can care less. You're like, all right, I got to figure out how I'm going to get sales, right? It doesn't matter how frustrated you get. That fuels you. It drives you. That the competitiveness is the thing that creates the reality you want to have when it comes to building your brand. And so Tom Brady, another one, right? So Tom Brady, in case you don't know who he is, he's considered the GOAT in football, right? He's like the GOAT in terms of the best quarterback ever, like literally ever. And by the way, if you don't know what GOAT is, GOAT stands for greatest of all time. So GOAT, G-O-A-T, greatest of all time. So when you hear people say he's the GOAT, Michael Jordan's the GOAT, they're saying he's the greatest of all time. So they say Tom Brady's the GOAT. Tom Brady, he was, I think, like the 6th pick or something like that in terms of the Patriots. And now he's like the GOAT, right? He's considered like the Michael Jordan of football. And Tom Brady, like when the owner came up to him to congratulate him or whatever, the owner was like, hey, yeah, congrats for being on the team or whatever. Tom Brady, he literally said to the owner, I'm the best decision you ever made. And that's literally what he said. First thing he said to the owner, I'm the best decision you ever made. And so he also said that, I was reading this, he told his friend, there was this other quarterback named Drew Bledsoe who was who was on the team, on the Patriots team before Brady. Well, Brady was there, but Brady's like just a scrub who just got drafted. Drew Bledsoe is like one of the best QBs, right? And they just paid Drew Bledsoe like $100 million at the time. And so there's no possible way they're going to get rid of this $100 million quarterback who's one of the best and just throw in this guy named Tom Brady who, I mean, maybe he's good, maybe he's not, whatever. There's no way they're going to do that, right? But Tom Brady, he was like, you know what? He told his friend, he said, look, if the Patriots ever give me a chance to play, Drew Bledsoe will never be allowed to play ever again. And that's actually what happened too. He said that because of how competitive he is. The competitive nature of you is what allows you to build your brand. It's what allows you to build your business. You have to get to an insane level of competitiveness. It literally should not make sense to other people. You should be doing things that simply don't make sense. I mean, you should be saying things that almost sound petty to other people when you say certain things in terms of how competitive you are. So it's like another thing that I was reading, right? Or thing I watched the Rock. So if you guys don't know who the Rock is, the Rock, Dwayne Johnson, same person. He's the big guy in all the movies. Comes out with like 1 million movies every single year. And so the Rock, if you don't know, before he did wrestling and before he did movies, he was actually a football player. And so what he did, it was him and a guy named Warren Sapp who were going up against each other for I think it was defensive tackle. Yeah, Warren Sapp's defensive tackle. Yeah. So like they were going up against each other for defensive tackle. And Warren Sapp, some of you know who he is, but basically it's The Rock and Warren Sapp. And Warren Sapp, he went up to The Rock and he's like, I'm going to take your spot, right? And The Rock's like, no, you're not. The hell if you are. He's, yeah, right. And Warren Sapp took his spot. Like, he just absolutely took it. And so The Rock, he's a motherfucker. And Warren Sapp was so competitive at the time. I mean, I'm sure he's still competitive, but it's like he was so competitive that he did take The Rock's spot. And this is how you need to think when you are building your brand. You need to look at that top person. If you're in the fitness industry, you look at Jillian Michaels, whoever. You look at the top person, and you're like, I'm going to take your spot. That's the mindset you got to have to build your brand. Everyone keeps thinking, what are the tactics and techniques I need to create or I need to do in order to get to $1 million or whatever? It's not about tactics and techniques. They keep changing over time. They constantly change. A few years ago, there was no Facebook, no Instagram, but you had guys like Tony Robbins who just freaking dominated the industry just because he had that competitive state of mind. And so it's the same thing. You look at the top person, you're like, I'm going to take your MF and spot. And so it doesn't matter what they say. Like The Rock, he was like, he told Warren Sapp, he's like, to hell if you are, you're not going to take my spot. And Warren Sapp took his spot. And Warren Sapp's like one of the best defensive tackles of all time, right? So that's literally the state of mind that you're in. It's more of like, if you're in my way, I'm going to destroy you. And this is what I mean by when you say things like this, it sounds petty to other people. But that's how you build anything. That's how you build your brand. That's how you build your business. You have these type of thoughts inside of your brain. It's like, if you get in my way, I will destroy you. That's how Warren Sapp thought of The Rock. He's like, hey, man, we're cool and all, but I'm taking your spot. And so that's literally what you're doing. Let's see. He says, sorry, you're going down. Yeah, I don't know why I'm going down, but let's see. What are some of the other comments here? Said, isn't brand building all a bunch of BS, as Dan Kennedy says? It's really about measurable outreach that produces an ROI. So absolutely not. So brand building, when you're building your brand, it's like, that's literally what that's why Coke and Pepsi dominate. That's why Gary Vaynerchuk dominates. That's why Grant Cardone dominates. Are they the best? Is Gary Vaynerchuk the best entrepreneur? Not even close. Is Grant Cardone the best salesperson? Not even close. But they will outsell any person in their industry because of their brand. And so any person who says brand is not important is simply, I mean, it's like they don't really know what they're talking about. What Dan Kennedy is simply saying is, you got to focus on sales first, which you do have to focus on. It's like, so like a lot of people, what Dan Kennedy is saying, don't just spend your money to just like be a brand, whatever. Don't just spend your money just for exposure. Spend your money to generate sales. That's what you're doing when you're spending your money. But over time, you build a brand. You're building a reputation where people buy from you just because of you. That's literally what it is. Anyone who tells me that building a brand isn't important is simply an idiot. I'm like, all right, I guarantee you, to someone like, I mean, Dan Kennedy's not an idiot. He's actually really smart. But someone like Dan Kennedy, tell him to fill up a stadium of 10,000 people for an event. He can't do it. He doesn't have the brand that Grant Cardone has. Someone like Grant Cardone, he can just, well, not can, he did fill up a stadium, like a freaking football stadium. Actually, they're doing that this year. He literally fills up stadiums. That's what a brand does. And so that's why you have to focus on it. But let's get back to the whole thing. I want to mention in terms of the competitiveness, right? So the competitiveness, it's like you're literally saying things like, hey, if you get in my way, I'm going to destroy you. And that's what's going on inside of your brain, right? And so the competitiveness comes from a very literally a petty type of thing. So like there's this industry, the PUA industry. The PUA industry is pickup artists, right? So the PUA stands for pickup artists. And there's this whole industry about guys who literally studied ways to pick up women. Like they studied how to say, like what to say. I mean, how to do body language, everything. It's actually pretty impressive, to be honest. And so they studied this, right? And so maybe they did it because they weren't getting girls or whatever, and they're like, oh man, I can't get girls or whatever, and they're like, you know what, I'm just going to be really good at picking up women. And so to a lot of people, they're like, oh, that's stupid, you can't get women, huh? And it's petty, like it sounds petty. And on the other hand, they're like, all right, say whatever you want, I just took your girl from you, right? And so that's the level that you have to be at. So like, for example, when someone gets bullied or whatever, and how they say, there's that saying of the best revenge is success or something like that, right? That's what really happens in real life. So many people are watching like motivational content and all this stuff. They don't understand what really happens to someone like a Kobe or a Jordan or a Tiger Woods or like any business person, Elon Musk or whatever. It's like this pettiness of like, okay, this person screwed me over. Oh, okay, I'm going to be so damn successful. They're going to envy me. And that's the level that you're getting to when you're building your brand and everything, right? So you said we have to go to the top. Yep. When is your brand? What? When is your brand is leadership or something counterproductive to bravado? No, nothing is counterproductive to competitiveness. Okay, absolutely nothing. If you look at any leader, look at Amazon, look at Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos is hands down one of the most competitive people ever. The only difference between someone like Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, and someone you can see the competitive drive in like Kobe, Jordan, and athletes is where you really can see it. The only difference is that someone like Jeff Bezos and Zuckerberg and Bill Gates, they just don't say it. Like you can't see it. Like Warren Buffett, same thing, right? Warren Buffett's a perfect example. If you look at Warren Buffett, he just looks like the old wise man. It's like an old wise guy, just a wisdom guy at the top of the mountain, just like, And he's like this guy at the top of the mountain, right? But I guarantee you, Warren Buffett is ridiculously competitive. That is how he's able to be the third richest person in the world, right? And so there is nothing that is counter to competitiveness. Absolutely nothing. That is how you get to where you want to be. All right. And so especially like with leadership, it's just a matter of how you express it. So like athletes, they tend to express it in a very verbal and a very visible way. Business leaders, it's almost non-existent, especially like when you're way at the top, like Jeff Bezos and all that. It's really hard to see unless you're like next to them. And it's deliberate because they know that if they actually like visibly show it, then the world will kind of turn against them, right? And so that's why they don't really show it. So you say, how does one determine what brand will be the most accepted and profitable? There's really no way to just like sit down and determine it. You kind of just build it as you go. So it's like as you're building, you're kind of just, you're rearranging as you go. All right. So you said, so is it okay to feel it and not go around saying it? Yeah, that's exactly how almost every business person should operate. Like if you're competing in terms of a sport, then yeah, I mean you can say it. You can say all you want. You can talk trash, all that stuff, like Jordan, all of them. But in business, it's almost like if you start talking trash, what's going to happen is people start calling you arrogant. They'll be like, oh no, I don't like this person, whatever. And so in business, it's almost like you do it and you just don't say it. Like you don't say anything. In your mind, you're like, I'm going to absolutely destroy you. I don't care that you're number one. I'm going to destroy you. I'm going to take your spot. And that's literally what you think. But if you were to say that, imagine if you were to come out with videos saying that. If you were like, Tony Robbins, I'm coming after you. I'm going to destroy you. I'm taking your spot. Then at that moment, one, you put someone like Tony Robbins on notice. Tony Robbins would be like, to hell you are. And so one, you put him on notice. And two, other people around you, they look at where you are compared to him and they're like, yeah, right. And basically you've now turned people against you when you do that. So it's like you need to think it, but you should never say it. This is why it's so hard to see it inside of business people, because they understand that. Like billionaires especially, they understand this. And so you need to literally think this stuff, but don't say it. All right? And all right, so you said, how do you determine how much to charge if you're starting out? We'll talk about that another time. All right, so you said, why are you afraid to sell yourself? All right, talking about, okay, so Darren said, so is it okay to feel it and not go around saying it? All right, cool. Yeah, so where was I at? And so the whole competitiveness, and the reason why I say everything comes down to this is because you're building your brand, right? You're building your business, brand, whatever. You're building your business. You have to make sacrifices, right? There's no way around it. You have to make sacrifices. And the competitiveness, that naturally creates the sacrifices. This is actually a great quote from Kobe. Kobe, he was talking about sacrifice. He was like, if they feel like sacrifices, you're probably not doing the thing you're meant to be doing. And what he was saying right there is like, look, when you are absolutely obsessed, when you are insanely competitive, you naturally sacrifice things in your life just because you want to win. Like you want to dethrone this person at the top. So you're like, okay, I got to wake up early in the morning and I got to go to like sleep late. I got to make sure that I'm eating healthy 24/7 to have the energy going. I got to do this. I got to do it. It doesn't feel like sacrifices because you're like, I want to be the best. Like I want to dethrone you from you being at the top of the industry. Let's say you're building a brand as a sales trainer, right? If I was building a brand as a sales trainer, you can guarantee I would look at someone like Grant Cardone. I'd be like, I'm going to dethrone this mother. I guarantee you 100%. And if you're not thinking that way, you will absolutely never get to his level. And I guarantee you, if someone were to talk to Grant and someone were to ask him, when you were building your thing, did you look at someone like Brian Tracy and Zig Ziglar and these sales trainers? Did you look at them saying like, oh, I'm a million times better. I'm going to absolutely destroy these guys? I guarantee you he'll be like, yeah, absolutely. And so you have to think that way to get there. That's the only way you're going to dethrone them. If you just think like, oh, that'd be cool to build a business like them, you simply won't get to their level. You won't even come close to it. You have to get to the point where you're literally thinking that way. And like I said with the Kobe thing, I'll say the Kobe quote again. He said, if they feel like sacrifices, you're probably not doing the thing you were meant to do, right? Just because it's not a sacrifice because you don't notice it as a sacrifice. You're just like, here's what I want. What do I have to do to get it? To other people, they're looking at it, they're like, oh, that's a huge sacrifice. But to you, it's not. Like, let's say like Mr. Olympia, right? The Arnold Schwarzenegger and all them. So Arnold Schwarzenegger, he's like, you know what? I want to be the #1 bodybuilder ever, right? And so what did he have to do? Other people can go out, eat pizza, McDonald's, whatever. Other people can do all sorts of stuff. Arnold Schwarzenegger couldn't, but he didn't see it as a sacrifice. He's like, here's what I want. So here's what I have to do to get it. I want to be the #1 bodybuilder ever. So in order to get it, I have to be very specific about what I eat. I have to be very specific about how I train. I have to be very specific about this and that. Well, that's pretty much it, how I eat and how I train. Yeah, and so he had to be like very specific about those things. He had to sacrifice everything else. When other people were going out having a good time or whatever and drinking alcohol, he simply couldn't. He's like, no, No, not going to do it. He didn't see it as a sacrifice. He's like, I want this thing. Nothing's going to get in my way. Not you, not this alcohol, not this. Nothing's going to get in my way of accomplishing this thing. That's how you build your personal brand. You get to the point where you're so competitive that sacrifices don't even come across as sacrifices. They simply just are. Like, it's just like, well, this is just how I live my life, right? And so you're simply obsessed. That's what it comes down to. When you're obsessed, sacrifices aren't sacrifices. It's just part of your life. All right. And so another thing I want to talk about real quick in terms of the competitiveness is a lot of it comes from rage. OK, so if you look at a lot of competitive people, you will see that they get angry very easily. They get frustrated very easily with other people. All right. And the reason is because of the rage inside. It's like, get out of my way. You are in my way. I need to accomplish this thing, and you are in my way. And when that happens, you are pissed off that people move slow. You're just pissed off that people aren't sharp. You're just pissed off, right? And that's where the rage comes from. It fuels you, and it fuels you because you know you can do better. And you want nobody to hold you back. You're like, I know the possibility of what I can accomplish. I know I can be the #1 guy in the industry. Get out of my way. If you're in my way, get out. And it's like the rage because you just know you can do better. You know you can be better, do better, have more. You just know it. And so when someone's in your way, someone or something, even you, when you're in your way, you're like, you get pissed off. You're like, dang it, well, I shouldn't have done that. And you just get pissed off at stuff. It's like this rage. That's why you hear things like with Steve Jobs. You hear how he was like an asshole pretty much. Not pretty much, he was, right? You hear that from literally like everybody. But he was an asshole because he's like, we can do so much better. Like, I don't care where we are. I don't care that we built this thing. We can be greater. And he felt like people were in his way. He's like, look, man, you're in my way. Get out of my way. And that's where the competitiveness comes from. It's this rage inside of you. So you need to let that fuel you. And someone like Kobe, he's even mentioned that. He's like, you can see that they'll just get pissed off. And so you need to let it fuel you. Remember, with all of this stuff, in order to be the 1%, you cannot think and do what the 99% think and does, okay? And so this is why, like, when you hear about things like this, let the rage fuel you, stuff like that, most people will be like, no, that's not how it operates. I guarantee you talk to someone like Kobe or Jordan or Elon Musk or whatever, they'll be like, yeah, that's right. I guarantee you 100%. They'll be like, yeah, pretty much. And it's just because when you get to a certain level of this competitive drive, when you're building your brand or doing anything in business, you need to understand that most people are in your way. Everything that someone says to you, like things like, oh, you should take a break. Oh, every now and again, you can just go have fun. Things like that. That's what normal people say. Get rid of those people. I mean, like, literally ignore them or get rid of them, whatever. Start hanging around the A players, the ballers, the billionaires. Hang around those people who, when you say that, like, man, I know I can be so much better. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, and you're expressing your anger. You're like, this is ridiculous. I should have done this better. They'll be like, yeah, I get it. That's what they'll say. What everyone else say, like, oh, you know what? You're being too hard on yourself. Stop being so hard on yourself. It's like, no, get out of my way. Stop saying that crap. What you'll notice is that successful people don't want to be complimented. They want to be pushed, right? That's how you can tell the difference between someone who's going to be insanely successful and everybody else. People who compliment, or people who want to be complimented, those are just the average, right? Successful people don't want to be complimented. They want to be pushed. And so those are the people you have to be around if you're going to build your brand, get to a level of competitiveness that doesn't make sense to people. I mean, you don't have to say it. In fact, you probably shouldn't say it, but just get to that level of competitiveness where it's just ridiculous to most people. And it will drive a lot of people away. It will naturally drive a lot of people away. The more competitive you are, the lonelier it gets, all right? So understand that the more competitive you are, the lonelier it gets. because you want to be the 1% of the 1%. Everybody else is okay with, like, I don't know, just having 6 figures or whatever. Everyone else is okay with just doing a couple things and little things like that. You're not. You're like, I want to be the best. I want to be number one in the industry. That's the mindset that you want to have if you want to build something great. And by the way, if you don't want to like be number one, there's nothing wrong with being number one. I mean, or not wanting to be number one. There's nothing wrong with that. If you just want to build a 6-figure business, travel, whatever, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm simply talking about the people who want to be number one in their industry. That's what I'm talking about. You got to be so competitive to where you're like, I'm going to take your spot, man. I don't care where you are. I'm going to take your spot. You got to do that. What Warren Sapp did to The Rock. You're like, dude, I don't care what you think. I don't care how positive you are. I'm taking your spot, man. And so that's why, like, when people talk about positivity to me, they're like, you got to be positive, whatever. I'm like, I can care less. Positive, negative, I don't care. You can be positive all you want. You simply will not beat someone who's better than you. It doesn't matter. No amount of positivity will make up for a lack in skill. And so that's why the positive stuff, it's absolutely, I'm blown away when people say it's like, you got to be positive to be successful. No, you don't. You got to be obsessed to be successful. Absolute obsession, competitiveness, that's what allows you to get the skills, and no amount of positivity will absolutely dethrone you from someone who's just positive. Like, you're skilled. You're more skilled than them. I was watching a video with Bill Gates was getting interviewed, and then there's this guy named Magnus Carlsen. Magnus Carlsen is considered one of the best chess players ever. Like, Bobby Fischer's here. Magnus Carlsen's considered like up here. The only one they say who's like close to him is Kasparov or something like that. But a lot of people say Magnus Carlsen's considered like the best chess player ever, right? So Magnus Carlsen's there. Bill Gates is there. And I can't remember which TV host it was, but the TV host was like, hey, guys, I want to see you guys play chess. Like, do a chess match. Bill Gates, you're a genius. Everyone says you're a genius. You're hella competitive. Magnus Carlsen, you're the #1 player in the world. Do a chess match, right? No amount of positivity or intelligence on Bill Gates' part would have allowed him to beat or even compete with Magnus Carlsen. I mean, Bill Gates could have called the Dalai Lama. Hey, Dalai Lama, give me some tips on some positivity here. Just help me be positive. I got to play Magnus Carlsen. Give me some tips, right? No amount of positivity can make up for skill. And Magnus Carlsen destroyed him in like 10 moves, right? He just won in like 10 moves. And so that's why you want to be so competitive. You literally tell people, I can care less how positive you are. You can think positive all you want. You're not going to win. And that's how you build your brand, right? You build your brand. This, by the way, is coming from inside of you. Most of this stuff, you are not saying this to other people. You're not saying this to people. You're simply doing it to fuel you. You're doing it because you want to be great. You want to be the #1 in the industry. And that's what's going to allow you to get there. And so you don't say this stuff. You simply think it. Like, people are like, all right, so yeah, I'm gonna think positive and all that. You're simply thinking like, I'm just gonna be more skilled than you. That's all you're thinking, right? And so there's that. I do want to point out the whole thing. You need to go to extreme measures if you want to be #1. So basically, however you operate in your life right now, it's not enough. You have to go to extreme measures to get the #1 spot. That's what has to happen. So it's like Tom Brady. He has like this ridiculous eating regimen, like a weird, ridiculous eating regimen. You can like look it up or whatever. He has a ridiculous eating regimen. Kobe, he would he would make 2,000 shots a day, like with the practice and stuff. He's like, I'm not going to leave the gym until I make 2,000 shots. So if it took him 10,000 shots to make 2,000, that's what would happen. So he's like, I'm going to make 2,000 shots before I leave. He went to extreme measures to be the top in his industry. That's the only way you're going to build your brand. You got to go to extreme measures. Maybe you got to give up stuff. I mean, the whole sacrifice thing, right? Give up alcohol, whatever, do a daily schedule. This is something that I liked about with Dan Kennedy, where Dan Kennedy, if you look at his stuff, this guy goes to extreme measures with stuff. He's like, look, I planned out my entire day. Like, everything is planned out. Like, this guy, he really goes to extreme measures. That's why he's so successful in the industry, or was, or I'm sure he still is, but you don't really hear about him nowadays. But But it's like, in order to get to where you want to be, you have to think in a very extreme way. You're like, here's what most people do. All right, here's what the top person does. I guarantee you, someone like Tony Robbins, Kobe, Jordan, all these people at the top, they have gone to extreme measures to get what they want. This is where you hear the term, the hard work, you got to work hard and all that. This is where you hear about stuff like that. You hear the stories of how Bill Gates, he's sleeping on the floor and the secretary comes in and calls the cops because she thinks that he's a homeless person in there, right? And so this is where you hear stories like that, because he's going to extreme measures to get what he wants. Everyone else, they're simply not, right? They're just not willing to give anything up. Whereas someone like Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and Mark Cuban, all these guys are going to extreme measures. Like, actually, I was watching an interview with Mark Cuban. And Mark Cuban, by the way, he built, I think it was broadcast.com. It's like one of the first broadcasting internet things ever. And so he built that, and they asked him, it was like something going on in terms of the inside of his Mavs business. Like, he owns the Dallas Mavericks basketball team. There was something going on, and they were like, well, before you bought the team, didn't you know about this person? Didn't you know how shady this person was or something? He's like, no, I didn't. Because they were like, he was like all over the news though, like back, and it was all over, it was talked about all the time. And you're like, how could you not know about this stuff? And he was like, well, because I was just working on my business 24/7. That's it. He's like, I got up, I worked on my business, I went to sleep. I got up, worked on my business, went to sleep. I didn't watch news. I didn't sit there and do what other people do. And so he went to extreme measures to get to where he wanted to be. And so that's what happens when you go to extreme measures like that. People will say things like, oh, did you see the new episode of so-and-so? You're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't know what that show is. I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, oh, did you hear about that new? No, I haven't heard about it. Like, you've just gone to extreme measures to get what you want, and so you have to be willing to do that. And so it's just with anything. Like, bodybuilders are a perfect example of this. Like, you'll see bodybuilders, how they change the way they eat and everything, and you'll see the extreme measures that they go through to get what they want. And I can't remember the name of the documentary. It was I think it's like Iron something, but you'll see the extreme measures that they go through to get what they want. For example, someone like Floyd Mayweather, right? Floyd Mayweather, what are the extreme measures that he went through? Well, it was a ton of extreme measures, but one of the stories that I heard about him, to get conditioned. So if you guys haven't done any type of boxing, I'll tell you, man, you will get tired instantly. Like, you'll get tired quick. And you see this with a lot of people who fight. Like, they're fighting, they're good to go for the first couple seconds, and then they're like, whew, they drop their hands and everything. They're tired as all hell. What Floyd Mayweather did to make sure he didn't get tired throughout all the rounds, his practice regimen was, let me practice with our sparring partners for 30 minutes straight. So I don't know how long boxing rounds are and how much rest they get in between the rounds, 30 seconds or 60 seconds, I don't know how long. But basically, there's the rounds. Let's say it's 3-minute rounds or whatever. I don't know how long the rounds are. And then you take a break, and then you go fight again. Then you take a break. You go fight again. You take a break. What Floyd Mayweather did, he's like, look, I'm never going to get tired during a fight. So what I'm going to do is, for 30 minutes straight in practice, we're going to fight. We're going to just go all out fighting for 30 minutes straight. And he had multiple sparring partners come in because they would get tired, right? It's like they're sitting there sparring for a few minutes, actually hitting each other, real fights, and they're getting tired. And Floyd Mayweather, he's like, all right, so now that you're tired, you go out, you step in. All right, and he boxed a fresh guy. All right, now that you're tired, you step in. And he got to a point where he was doing the extreme measures to a point where he never gets tired during a fight. And all fighters will tell you that about him. They're like, this dude is like, he's not tired ever. And so you go to extreme measures to get what you want, right? So let's see, what do you say here? He said, I need a Forbes article that suggested you have to have a book published by a traditional person to have credibility. Absolutely not. I don't have a book published, right? I've gotten $30,000 gigs, $25,000 gigs. Damn near every Fortune 500 company has hired me. It has nothing to do with publishing a book. Absolutely nothing, right? All right, so now that I went over that, so let's get back to this. I do want to say that we're almost done here. Then I'll do a couple Q&As. I do want to say that you need to study competitive people, all right? So a lot of people watch motivational videos. You need to watch competitive people. Watch them, listen to what they say. Like, listen very closely to the things that they say. And you will see that it's one of those things where when most people hear it, they're like, oh, that's kind of messed up. Like, oh, I don't know if you should really be saying that, right? They'll, like, normal people will say things like that. But you need to watch competitive people to hear what they say, to see how their mind works, and you'll see the difference. You'll literally see, you'll say to yourself, like, okay. I see why Jordan's the greatest of all time. Okay. I see why Tom Brady's the greatest of all time. Like, that's what happened to you. A lot of people watch motivational videos to make them feel good. They're like, oh yeah, all right, I'm ready. Let's go. Come on. They watch videos to feel good. You need to watch the competitiveness, the competitive nature of people to see what's really going on inside of them and start thinking that way. So you don't wake up and say, today is going to be a good day. You wake up, you're like, I'm going to absolutely just take over this person's spot. Now, like, hands down, I know you're number one right now, but you won't be. And like, that's how competitive people think. Every person who is number one in their industry has thought that way. And then when they get there, they're thinking to themselves, I don't care what you guys do, like way below me, you will absolutely not dethrone me. You hands down will not dethrone me. That's when they're at the top, they're like, you just won't dethrone me, right? And that's like what Bill Gates, to where Bill Gates, he said, like, he's like, I'm not really afraid of other companies that are out there like Apple or whatever. He's like, I'm afraid of the guy that I don't know about that's in his garage who's going to come after me. He's like, because if he's fighting someone like Apple or whatever, like if he's going against someone like Apple, he can see what they're doing. Whereas someone who's like in the garage, he can't really see anything. Like they're like, I'm going to dethrone you, Bill Gates. I'm going to dethrone you. And so he can see them coming. And so you have to get to the level of where you want to study competitive people. And it's best to study athletes because, like I said, with businessmen, billionaires and all them, you can't see their competitiveness. Businessmen are damn near way more competitive than 99% of athletes. You just can't see it. It's very hidden because they know they need to hide it, right? And so you'll hear about how competitive Bill Gates is, but if you look at Bill Gates, like go to anywhere online, watch any interview with Bill Gates. Go to YouTube, type in Bill, do research for years. You will not see Bill Gates. You won't see his competitiveness in any of the interviews. Absolutely none. Same with Jeff Bezos. You simply will not see it. They will be calm as all hell. They're like, yeah, we absolutely know that we need to focus on the customers. We know that 99% of the time we just need to focus on customers. It's customer experience. And that's how we really build Amazon. That's what you will see from them. But if you were to turn them inside out and you were to see what's going on inside of their mind, Jeff Bezos is like, all right, we're going to put Barnes and Nobles and Borders out of business. And that's what they did. Now they're like, all right, we're coming after you, Amazon. I mean, we're coming after you, Walmart. Walmart, I know you're the number one company in the world, but not for long. And that's what's actually happening inside of Jeff Bezos' mind. It's not like, this is why you don't want to, I mean, it's cool to study business people. Of course, you want to study business people, but you'll see the competitive nature more inside of athletes. And so study athletes. And then take that competitiveness in terms of like stuff that Jordan says, Kobe and all them, take that competitiveness and just take that to someone like Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, take it to them and say, all right, it's probably like times 100 inside of someone like Jeff Bezos, right? So that's how you really want to think. Because that's actually what's going on inside of their minds. So you want to study them more than just studying simple motivational videos. Like, it's like I said, it doesn't matter how positive or motivational you are. It cannot compete with skill. It simply cannot outdo skill. And so while someone else is studying motivational videos, while someone else trying to be motivational, someone like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and all these guys, they're getting skilled. They're so competitiveness that they want to get skilled. They want to learn more, do more, be more. They're getting skilled. That's why they have more. They're like Jeff Bezos. He's like, I can care less how positive you think you are. our business will destroy your business. Like that's literally what he's thinking. He's like, I don't care how positive you think you are or how many motivational books you read. He's like, if we come into your industry, we're simply going to destroy your business. And that's actually what Amazon really does. The only one who has a chance is really Walmart, to be honest. Everyone else, if Amazon comes in your industry, you might as well get out of the industry. You might as well, damn it, you know what? Amazon's now in the real estate business. I'm no longer a realtor. Damn it. So it's like, yeah, it's almost scary, to be honest. So let's see. All right, we got that? Cool. Ultimately, it comes down to like building the brand. The reason why like you want to be so competitive is because it creates that consistent level of action. So when you're insanely competitive, you think in terms of, I'm going to make daily cold calls, daily emails. I'm going to send out, or I'm going to make daily videos, daily podcasts, whatever. You're so competitiveness that you just keep doing and you just do more. You're like, okay, I know it's frustrating to do this technology stuff, but you want to be number one. And because you want to be number one, you just keep doing, you stay consistent, right? And you just stay consistent because you know that I got to get to the level where I'm going to dethrone whoever's number one. And the only way to dethrone number one is to be very, very skilled. That's the only way. That's why you got to get the knowledge, whether it's through a mentor program, whatever it is, you got to get the knowledge and you got to work on that thing to be very, very skilled. And so you simply have to, you have to think in terms of competitiveness so you're just consistent. It's like, all right, I'm going to build an online brand, and every single day I'm going to send out an email to my list. Every single day I'm going to send out an email to my list. Or I'm going to build an online brand, and every single day I'm going to create a video. I'm going to build an online brand, and every single day I'm going to make a podcast, right? And so you're simply just competitive to the nature where you're consistent. That's what competitiveness does to you. And so I know everyone keeps talking about, like, in terms of building a brand and all that, they always think it's all about the technology. Oh, do you have ClickFunnels? Do you have this and all? It's not about that. It's about you. It's about that competitive drive inside of you. It ultimately comes down to just never being satisfied, right? That's what competitiveness comes down to. When you're never satisfied, your level of ambition needs to be consistent with the fantasy that you want to turn into a reality. All right? That's how you have to think. Your level of ambition has to be consistent with the fantasy that you want to turn into a reality. So if you want to do 6 figures, you don't need to be Bill Gates or whatever. You don't need to have that competitive drive. If you want to be a billionaire, your competitive drive needs to be ridiculous. Like it has to be insane, right? And so that's what I mean by your level of ambition needs to be very consistent with the fantasy turning into a reality. You simply have to think, okay, if I just want a 6-figure business, if I want to do $250,000 a year, just travel and stuff like that, it's like you're comfortable with that, then you need to be more ambitious than the regular person. You need to be more ambitious than the average person. If you want to do 7 figures, you need to be more ambitious than the person who wants to do 6. If you want to do 8, you need to be more ambitious than the person who wants to do 7. If you want to do 9, you got to be more ambitious than everybody else, right? And so that's how you have to think. You have to think at what, like, where do I want to go? Like, where do I see myself going? What type of business? How big of a business? All that. You got to see it inside of your head. And now you got to say, all right, my level of ambition needs to be very consistent with the reality that I want to create. That's what you have to do just all the time, right? Like I said, study competitive people 24/7. Just study competitive people. Don't worry about studying motivational stuff. Study competitive people. This is why you want to read like a lot of biographies. I wish I would have read way more biographies back in the day because it comes down to studying competitive people. That's what it comes down to. And then adopting that way of thinking, okay? All right, so we are good to go. I'm actually going to end Instagram here. Let's do that. Are there any questions on Facebook that you guys have? Any other questions? So let's see. Corey said, what is the next step when your initial who hires speakers email goes unanswered? That is something that we'll talk about another day. Any questions about the competitiveness? In terms of that whole thing, and basically all you're really doing is you're building out a system, like the process, and you need to answer that question yourself. So if you're not inside the Speak Pro Academy, if you guys are inside Speak Pro Academy, you already know what the answer is. Like all of it is in there, okay? So it's all there in the Speak Pro Academy. Go inside Event Finder, look at that pipeline, and bam, the answer is literally right there. The email templates are literally right there. If you're not, you have to figure it out. You have to say, okay, after I say like, hey, who hires the speakers? Well, what do you do next? This is where it comes down to you building out the processes and the systems in your business, to where it's like you sit there and you think about it for a second, then you do it and you see how people reacted to it, and then you adjust from there, right? So it's like, this is why it takes people so long to build a business, because they don't have the systems yet. So they're like, okay, I think I should do this, and I think I should do this. They don't have the systems. Whereas if you just get a system, like you just buy a McDonald's franchise, you just have it all right there, right? All right, cool. Incredibly eye-opening today. Cool. Nice. All right. Any questions about competitiveness? Like I said, study insanely competitive people. I know a lot of people, they really think that building an online brand and building a business comes down to tactics and techniques, and everyone kind of understands it does come down to mindset. But when people think of mindset, they think of motivational stuff. And like I said, no amount of positivity will beat someone who's skilled. So it just doesn't matter how positive you are. You simply will not beat a chess grandmaster. You simply won't. And it doesn't matter, right? You can be positive all you want. You can go play football and Tom Brady will destroy you. You can be positive all you want. You go play basketball, Kobe and Jordan will destroy you, right? No amount of positivity can make up for a lack of skill. So you have to be so competitive that you naturally built the skill to be number one in your industry. That's where everything comes from, no matter what you do. All right, cool. So I guess we are good to go for today. We will start talking about some more of the tactics and techniques tomorrow and everything, but I wanted to get this out of the way because I don't think people realize how competitive they need to be to get what they want, or how intense they need to be to get what they want, okay? So what'd you say? How do you balance the desire to compete along with the need to serve as you're cranking out the activity and also trying to be organically attentive? Oh, I like that question. So yeah, so a lot of people think that they're two different things. It's not. So it's like Jeff Bezos is a perfect example. One of the most competitive people ever, like absolutely competitive. He's insanely smart as well. And so with Jeff Bezos, he's like, I'm going to dethrone Barnes & Nobles. He did it. He did the same thing with Walmart. He's like, I'm going to dethrone Walmart. I'm going to put Walmart out of business. It's an insane amount of competitiveness. But he's like, okay, now it comes down to how. How do I dethrone Walmart? Now Jeff Bezos is like, well, the way I dethrone Walmart is to focus on the customer. 100% focus on the customer, because people hate standing in lines at Walmart. They hate being stopped by that greeter who says, can I see your receipt? Doesn't even look at it and just check marks a thing and just waste your time, right? People hate that. So now Jeff Bezos is like, okay, 100% focus on the customer. You know what? People want to return an item. Let's just let them return it. Even though we know they're screwing us over, let's just let them return it anyways, right? And so he's thinking like, I'm so competitive, I'm going to dethrone you MFers, right? That's what's going to happen. Then he's like, how do I do that? I do that by focusing 100% on the customer. Walmart is like, we're focusing on profits. Amazon, I mean, of course, focusing on profits, but at the same time, it's like, it's going to mostly be about customers. That's where the profits are going to come from. So people think that they're separate, but they're not. They're not separate at all. If you say, I'm going to be, let's say a sales trainer, right? You say, I'm going to be the #1 sales trainer in the world. I don't care, Grant Cardone, all you, Brian Tracy, all you guys, I'm going to be the #1 sales trainer ever. How do you do that? How do you go from nobody knows who you are to dethroning the top person? The way you do that is you focus on the people that you are serving, right? You say, okay, I'm going to be the #1 sales trainer in the world. So what that means is I have to get people so much success that it would be stupid of anyone to go and buy any other program other than mine. That's what you do. It's the same thing. The competitiveness and you actually building it, serving other people, it's the same thing. It's not different. You simply say, I'm going to be the #1 guy. The way to be #1 is to get people so much results that you would have to be stupid not to buy my program. You'd have to be stupid not to work with me. Because if you work with me, I guarantee we will make you $1 million in a month or whatever, right? And so that's how it operates. That's how it works, right? Okay, so the competitiveness, it's all about you, like your competitiveness. Then it comes down to the how. The how is the skilled. That's where the skill comes into play, right? So that's what it's all about. All right, cool. So thanks everybody for showing up. We will do another Facebook Live. Facebook Lives Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. We're doing it Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. So I'll see you guys tomorrow, 9 a.m. Pacific time. So take care, everybody. Thanks for being here. 9 a.m. Pacific time tomorrow.